Hey everybody, it's Angela back with another process video, and this baby layout is going to be of my grandson. I'm going to use this stitched collection, and I have just a few papers of it that I've gotten in various either Cocoa Daisy or Scraptastic kits. So I have just 3 pieces of it, and then also that piece of Cocoa Daisy, that dark gray, that I'm going to use as a second mat. And I want to do this layout with more softer baby colors than some of the previous baby layouts I've done for him. And so I'm going to use that paper I just took away to cut off the manufacturer's strip and to cut it down to mat on that gray cardstock. And then I'm going to use the cut apart sheet for some of my embellishments since I don't have anything else from the collection. So I'm just cutting out ones where I like the sentiments. And I like the fact that these are kind of watercolor, and so they're a little softer, a little more washed out. And they also have a little bit of pink on there, which picks up on the baby's skin tones. I did want, a little bit of warmth and pink color in there, even though I wanted it to be predominantly more the blues and grays, so a little bit more masculine. I also have that hello tag, which I really love, but I just couldn't get it to work on this. I think because it's almost the same size as the photograph, it just wasn't working for me. At this point, I had nothing in mind, just that I wanted to use these products, so I'm just kind of playing around with it here. I think about making a column of them. I think about putting some side on each side of the photo. I think about here going with the angle of the papers. But the little cards were just kind of getting lost on that stripy paper. So I try it in like 2 different clusters. And I really do love the sentiments that are on the cards, so I want them to stand out. But they were just kind of getting lost. So at this point, I think is when I decide that I need a mat or something to kind of push back the stripes on that background paper and let those cards stand out. So I try it first with this little kind of checkmark paper, which I used to mat the photo on, but it was just too light. And so I go with that more of that dark gray that I used for the second mat, that Cocoa Daisy paper. And I put that on there, and then that really starts making it pop. The cards kind of stand out, the sentiments stand out. And it also covers up, there was one stripe in the middle of that paper that was, heavier on the pink and red. That got covered up, so I kind of like that. I wanted some pink on there, but not a lot. So I go ahead and I commit to that, and I'm just going to layer my photo to the left-hand side of those little cards. And then I cut down that gray strip so it just spans the pattern paper and leaves the cardstock border all the way around. So I get it to this point, and I don't really have any other embellishments. I don't have the die cuts or stickers or anything that go with the stitched collection, so I know that I'm going to have to use some of the paper to make my own embellishments. So here I'm just going to mat this first on the cardstock. So I go to my die cuts and I use that checkmark paper and I make some of these little stars. And then I'm going to use, I do a few tests of some different colors of ink here, and I go with the gray tin can Prima chalk ink that came in one of my Scraptastic kits. And I'm so glad they include these little chalk inks, because it's really made my collection and selection of inks so much better, because I didn't really have a lot, and these are just kind of like the perfect size for me. So I go ahead and I just edge those to give some delineation. And I kind of like going with the little stars, instead of like doilies or flowers. And I know I want to use 3 of them on there. So I go ahead and I cut the largest one to be up at the top there. And then the second largest one I'm going to tuck under the photo mat, kind of in the middle there. And then that smallest star I'm going to put up on top. So I go ahead and I commit to that. And I like how it just softens everything down, kind of breaks up some of those horizontal lines on that background paper. And then this third smallest star I do put up on foam tape just to give some height and dimension. So I go ahead and put that down, and I'm really liking it so far. And then I'm wondering, okay, now what am I going to use on here? So I'm going to dip into my stash for some more embellishments. And sitting on my desk are these little wood veneers, and they are right here. They are 2014, and I thought, oh my, we're almost done with 2014, so this is the perfect layout to get these used up. And I think they came in at the beginning of the year. I got these Scraptastic This Life Noted kits, and since I don't really do pocketed page scrapbooking, I only got them for a while just to get some cards built up, and then I canceled it and went with just the Scraptastic scrapbooking kit instead. So I think that I got those wood veneers in the This Life Noted kit earlier in the year. So they had been sitting on my desk, and so this was like the perfect time to get them used up. Otherwise, yeah, they'll wind up in my stash and outdated and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm just going to use that same Prima chalk ink to ink all the wood veneers. I also pulled out some stars from various Scraptastic and Cocoa Daisy kits that I've gotten. And so I'm going to ink them all in that same gray. And I love this color of gray because it's really soft and it works good for a baby page where you want, you know, not anything harsh, not high contrast. So I just go ahead and get those all inked up. And I'm going to put the date down there on that bottom little star. I'm going to save this top star to put his name. And I use a combination of the Scotch Quick Dry adhesive and my dot glue runner on these little numbers. Because sometimes the dot adhesive, you just don't get enough of it on there. So I go ahead and I place those. So glad to get that out of my stash. And off the top of my desk too. And then I go ahead and also put some glue on this one star here. And I'm just using these little stars just like you would enamel dots, just to kind of break that up. And I go ahead and I glue the stars on the top before I place the name, which was I probably shouldn't have done. And I thought about it here. I thought, you know what, I better not glue those last two little stars until I put an extra embellishment on top. So I go and I dig through my thickers and alphabet stickers looking for different kinds of grays that I think might go with this. Because all the teals I have were too bright of a teal, so I'm looking for something more in the gray tones. And there were some that were like mistable thickers, and I thought about using my ink pad on them, but I wasn't sure how that would work out. So I go with these kind of fuzzy thickers that came in one of my kits, and they're a little bit lighter gray than the chalk ink. And luckily where I glued my star, I could kind of nestle the end right up to it, so I didn't have to rip that off. Like I said, I probably shouldn't have glued those stars before I placed the name, but it worked out okay. And then the thickers also had these little stars on there too, so I was able to bring some of that same lighter fuzzy gray down to the bottom part of the layout as well. And so now I didn't know what to put on that third starburst. Like I said, I don't have any of the embellishments for this collection. So I thought about taking that XO and using the same die cuts to cut that out. But the XO, it was just too narrow of a card to be able to cut that out. I try several different sizes, and there's just no way it's gonna work on there. So then I think, well, I'll just cut it down into a little square and put it on there. So I take my scissors and I kind of chop it down, but a square looked funny too. So then I decided to just go ahead and cut them all the way out. And that looks a lot better. And it brings a little bit of that pink over. And so then I go ahead and I just edge the XO in the same gray ink, just to give it a little bit of presence, a delineation from the rest of the background paper. And I go ahead and adhere those on there. And then I go ahead and I glue those last two stars down. So I was glad I waited to glue those guys until I got my embellishments on there. So I go ahead and I glue this star, and then this open star, my glue goes all over the place and through the star. So I have to kind of clean the whole thing up and start over. There we go. And I get that glued on there. And then that pretty much finishes off my layout. And I really love this one as far as the baby boy pages I've made so far. This one just is still so soft and baby-like. So I think it's my favorite so far. And there is the stickers of his name, the little cards, the extra stars. And it's a pretty simple page, but I really love how it turned out. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions on any of this, just leave me a comment below, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.